Hello and welcome to Manika IAS. In this video, we'll be discussing about the types of majority. So what are the types of majority? Before we get into the details, the types of majority, let us first understand what is majority and why do we need majority. Majority means the maximum vote number of votes in favor of a particular thing or against it, right? So whenever we say majority is needed, the majority wins. The maximum number of votes will be there in which side, that particular side will be win. Now, why do we need majority? Majority is needed for the passage of bills. Now, we have discussed previously that Parliament is a legislative body. Their main agenda is to frame laws. And if they are framing laws, somebody has to pass that. And how do we decide whether the law which has been framed is right or wrong? Then you take the vote of the entire members of the parliament, and on the basis of their voting, we decide, okay, majority is in the favor of the bill or is not in the favor of bill. And for every different purpose, there is a different sort of majority which is there, and that is what we'll be discussing in this particular video, right? So before we get into the types of majority, let us first understand the strength of the houses, both the houses of parliament. So Parliament is divided into two houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. In Constitution, it doesn't mention Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. It has been written House of People and Council of State. House of People for Lok Sabha and Council of State for Rajya Sabha, right? So under Article 81 of Indian Constitution, it mentioned that not more than 530 seats will be there from the states, and not more than 20 members will be elected from the union territory, right? So this is your elected house, this is your popular house. Popular house. Because it's us, the people who directly vote for the members of the Lok Sabha, whenever there is a polls in our constituency, right? However, the member of Rajya Sabha are indirectly elected. The elections and all we'll be discussing later when we'll be discussing the parliament, but here we are just understanding the strength of both the houses so that we can understand the type of majority in a better way, right? So the constitution has provided a total strength of 550. That means you cannot breach the strength of 550, right? Now, in considering this provision of the constitution, parliament has allowed for 530 seats from states and 13 seats from union territories. So this is your fixed strength, 543. Now, apart from this 543, under Article 331, the Constitution also mentioned that the President can nominate not more than 2 Anglo-Indian members. However, this provision was done away with by 104 Constitutional Amendment Act in 2019. Now, this act ceased this provision. As of now, this matter is sub judice, but presently there is no such Anglo-Indian member under Article 331 in the Parliament. So we'll stay with the strength of 543. Coming to Rajya Sabha, in Rajya Sabha under Article 80, it says that not more than 238 members can be there from state and union territories both, right? And then the president has to nominate 12 members. Now please keep this thing in mind, where constitution is giving a choice that not more than 530, not more than 20 and not more than 238. It is only this strength, that is the 12 nominated member, is what fixed by the constitution. Now this is the strength which is fixed, rest other is left to the parliament to keep. Okay. Now the parliament has sanctioned 233 members plus 12 these, the total strength of Rajya Sabha became 245. So this is the total strength of parliament, right? Now let us understand types of majority. See, types of majority. We have 6 different types of majority: absolute, effective, simple. SPL stands for special. 1, 2 and 3. But this is only for the ease of your understanding. However, nowhere in the constitution it has mentioned that absolute majority or a special majority or a simple majority, right? So constitution is not using this term. This is a term which is being given for your reference, for our understanding, for simplification of understanding and referring to a particular thing, right? Now, before we go to majority, we must know what is quorum. See, for any house to meet, to start its meeting, it is important that the quorum is fulfilled. And what is the quorum? 1/10 of the strength of the house. So 543 into 1/10, right? So minimum this number of people has to be there before we start the conduct of the house. If in a meeting there are less than 1/10 of the strength of the house people are there in the meeting, then that meeting cannot move forward. It has to be done away with at that time. So the minimum strength which is required is 1/10 of the house, and that particular strength is called quorum, right? Now let us discuss about the absolute majority. What is absolute majority? Absolute majority means more than 50% of total strength of the house. Total strength means the sanctioned strength. That is, for Lok Sabha it is 243, for Rajya Sabha, 543, for Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha it is 245, right? So this is the total strength. So if you have more than 50% of this strength, that is absolute majority. And where do we need absolute majority? In the formation of the government, right? Nowhere else it is required, but it is only required for the government formation. Whenever you have election, the party with the majority seats wins the election. So as at present, if you see, BJP has 301 seats, which is they have absolute majority. Now imagine there is a situation where the winning party does not have like 50% of the seats. Say they have about 200. Right? So it is not more than 50%. So what do? They come together with another party which has say 100 seats, and then they together with 300 seats make the government. Now this type of government is called hung government, hung parliament or hung government. However, this is known as majority government. Majority government and hung government or coalition government or minority government. Minority government. So the party which has the absolute majority will form the majority government, and if no party has the absolute majority, some of the party come together and then they frame the government, and that government is called hung parliament or the minority government, right? Now come to the effective majority. What does the effective majority means? Effective majority means more than 50% of the effective strength of the house, right? Now what does the term effective strength means? See, total strength, we understand the sanctioned strength of the parliament. Now imagine in 543, few people are dead now, they are no more, so their seats are vacant. Then you have some who has resigned, some who have disqualified. So ideally their seats are vacant, there is nobody who is there on those seats, right? So the effective strength means total strength minus vacancies, and vacancies include death, resignation and disqualification. So if due to any of these three factors any seat is vacant in the house, then that is not counted in the effective strength of the house. Effective strength becomes total strength minus the vacancies, right? So why do we need this type of majority? We need it for the removal of presiding officers and removal of vice president, because vice president is also a presiding officer in Rajya Sabha, right? So why are we saying that it is the presiding officers for whom the effective strength is required? Because presiding officer is presiding only on the effective strength. It has nothing to do with the simple the absolute majority, right? Absolute strength ke saath it has no correlation. Say for example, you are in a class and you have a class monitor. So presiding officers are essentially acting like a class monitor who are there for some responsibilities and to maintain a decorum, right? So they are acting only on those people who are there, who the strength is there. So that is why it is the effective majority which is required for the removal of presiding officers. Now, when you say, let's come to simple majority. Simple majority in constitution, if at any place it is not mentioned that which kind of majority is required, we always consider that it is talking about a simple majority. That is why simple majority is also called default majority. It is also called default majority. Right? Because if nothing is mentioned about the kind of majority required, then we consider that it is a simple majority which is required. And it is required for your day-to-day activities. Day-to-day activities, right? We'll go to the application part later, but let us understand what is simple majority. Simple majority means 50% of the strength of people who are present and voting. Now, we discussed that a quorum is required, that is 1/10 of the strength of house is required to be there for the conduct of any business of the house. Now imagine the total strength is 543 and people who are sitting there are 200, right? So they fulfill the criteria for the quorum. So if 200 people are sitting and there is a bill that is to be passed, if the strength which is required is 50% of the strength which is present, plus second condition is they should be voting. What does that imply? That implies that member of parliament are not bound to vote for any passage of bill. They can opt not to vote also. They can be sitting, but they can still opt not to vote. So if imagine there are 100 people who are, there are 200 people who are there in the house sitting for a meeting, and out of them 50 opt not to vote, right? Then you have 150 people who are present and who are voting. The 50% of them, that is more than 75 people, if they vote in the favor of that bill, that means that bill will now become an act, right? That bill will be passed. So this is how the president voting system works, where it is required for ordinary bills, for passage of money bills, day-to-day activities, for financial bills, also for all the motions of the house. By and large, that includes confidence motion, no confidence motion, vote of thanks. So for all those we need a simple majority, and it is also for election of speaker, deputy speaker and deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha. So for removal we have effective majority, but for elections we have simple majority, right? And because it is there for your day-to-day functional basis, it is also called functional majority. So default majority, because if no majority is present, we considered that it is talking about simple majority, and also because of day-to-day functions, it is also known as functional majority. Simple majority is the most widely used majority in the houses, right? Then come to your special majorities, right? We have 3 different types of special majorities. Let us discuss what is special majority type 1. Now special majority type 1 means more than 2/3 of people present and voting, right? So present and voting we discussed. So more than 2/3 of present and voting. Why it is required? It is largely required in Rajya Sabha and State Legislative Assembly, less required in Lok Sabha. So it is required for permissions. Like if Rajya Sabha wants to give permission for the creation of any other all India service, then we required special majority type 1. Further, if the states want to delegate their power of making laws on a particular subject to the center, then also it required the special majority type 1, right? Come to special majority type 2. Special majority type 2 means more than 2/3 of president voting, the same thing, plus half of total strength. कि सिर्फ 2/3 प्रेसिडेंट वोटिंग से काम नहीं बनेगा, आपको हाफ ऑफ टोटल स्ट्रेंथ भी चाहिए. एज इन से 543 है तो इसका 50% एक कंडीशन है, एंड देन इसका 2/3 is another condition. 2/3 of present and voting ka, right? Say for example, if 250 people are there who are present and voting, ठीक है, अब इनमें से 2/3 have agreed to vote in favor, but that 50% condition of this will not comply here, so this bill will not be passed. And why do we require this majority? For the laws which are article under 368. Article 368 essentially deals with constitutional amendment that will be discussed in the next lecture after this. So for the laws which are there under article 368, we need special majority type 2. Then for the removal of judges, and also under article 169 clause 1, this is used by the states for creation and abolition of legislative councils by the state legislative assemblies. So this is special majority type 2. Coming to special majority type 3, special majority type 3 is the toughest majority because it says 2/3 of the total strength. That means 2/3 of 543 if we talk about Lok Sabha. That it is only required for the impeachment of president. Nowhere else it is used, but for the impeachment of president. And we have kept such hard majority for the removal of president because president is the head of the state, right? It's such a prestigious position, nobody can just come and replace him like that. So you need to have a 2/3 of the total strength of house, a majority which is there for the impeachment of president, right? This is about the type of majorities and their use case. We'll be discussing about the amendment of the constitution in the next video. Till then, you read about it, and if you have any questions, you can ask. And before we end, let me tell you one thing, that from here to here, if we are moving, so these are the most, these are the tough majorities, and these are the easier majorities. And why they are tough? Because when we are discussing about special majorities, that essentially means that we are talking about the federal principles. If any change in any law or anything is impacting the Federation of India, the federal principles of India, then they have to come through a difficult majority, and that is why we have special majority. Like see, AIS, All India Service, impacting the federation structure. So that is why we have special majority 1. Then you have removal of judges, constitutional amendment, right? So these all are impacting on a huge scale to the Federation of India. That is why we have federal principles ko impact kara. That is why we have different type of majorities. So this was one important point, and we shall meet again for the amendment of the constitution. Thank you. Have a nice day.